Oh, there we are. It's nice to know that you can rely on certain things even in this fast-changing technological world. The next thing will be to find a share, which is also a different icon, but it's there. See if we can find a share. Well, the share is not here. Document is not here. So I did open it before. I don't know why it isn't here. So I'll have to do something else. Let's see, share. I'm looking for some kind of, and it doesn't give me all the icons that I used to have down here. Let's have a look at more. No, transcript, no. Hold on, this might be docs. Let's have a look at docs. See if I can load my docs. Zoom docs.
Look at recent.
I'm not sure.
Recent. When did you have it on?
Well, no. I think this is Zoom docs. I don't think this is going to give it to me.
My files.
But that might do. No. This is Zoom docs. So that's not good. That's not good.
Okay, so go
out of that. I'm trying to get the screen share and I don't see it.
Smaller, make your thing smaller. What's the docs that you saw?
That thing here. Well, I'm not sure. No, I don't want this at all. No, I don't want this at all. Get out of this.
Okay, go to just double click. Double click on the screen.
On the screen?
Just double click. Okay. Now go to your documents.
Ah, down here. No, the documents are
Okay.
But no, that's not the file I want.
All right, so close it.
Yeah. And get the one I do want, which is not
the yellow.
It's not here. I have to go into this. I go right down to Word.
Just write the one you want. Search documents. Write start the.
I have a chill now. Trying to listen there.
English. Complicated.
It's not if you just did control this.
50. Let's have a look. Why can't I see this? All right, so now I have to go back into Zoom.
Go back into your Zoom. Now you can make it bigger if you want. Click on it.
No, I have to get rid of them.
Just double click on it. All right.
Share. Let's see if we can get this up. That's it. That's the one. Okay. There we are. So, good evening again. And we will begin. It said recording, and the little red light is going off and on. We are recording and we are screen sharing. So let's have a look. We're going to finish off second day Yom Tov, and then we'll start with a heartless chicken. This is Rav Avad Yosef. Avad Yosef, somebody needs to mute because there's a noise. No more noise. Okay. If you were to open up the Shulchan Aruch and ask and just look for second day Yom Tov, we read Rabbi Yosef Karo. You keep 2 days if you're a chulnik. How am I going to mute all? Where's the mute? What? Yeah, I can't see the icon though for the muting. So yeah, I can't see any muting icon. Can everybody mute, please? Can everybody mute? Who is not muted? Bernie, Are you muted? No. All right. Okay. If you were to open up the Shulchan Aruch and just ask, what is the din about second a Yom Tov for a Chutz La'aretz Jew coming to Israel who doesn't plan to go on Aliyah? We open up the Magen Avraham, and Magen Avraham says that even if you're a student coming to study in Eretz Israel for 2 or 3 years and you plan to go back, then you have to keep 2 days. Okay? So let's start from line 8. Ulam. However, since we have learned the Chacham Tzvi, Vashoel Meishiv, and Rabbi Yosef Shaul Natanzon, famous Meishiv from Lvov or Lemberg, who we can talk about as well. The Hagraz, who is the Graz? Hagaon Rabbi Zalman, Lubavitcher Rebbe, the first one, the Balatanya, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Ladi, Shulchan Aruch, the Sfira Lahu, Shebachol Ofen Yesh Linhog Yom Tov Echad B'vad. They'll say 1 day Yom Tov is sufficient, Ben Lahakel, Ben Lahachmir. Whether you're going to be stricter, that is, you're an Israeli coming to Chutz La'aretz, or whether you're going to be more lenient, that is, a Chutz La'aretz person coming to Israel. It's a geographical criterion, and that's what dictates the days of Yom Tov you shall keep. Nehi, granted, the law kaimalan hachilinan balei batim shalu letzitz levedatam nachzor. Rav Yosef says, now we would not apply the Chacham Tzvi et al. To balabatim, who have firm households in Chutz La'aretz, and they're planning to go back after their visit to Israel. They keep 2 days. Mikol makom, b'bachurim revakim, but bachelors, young bachelors, miha she'efshar she'tiyeh lehem zdanut litchaten be'eretz Yisrael v'yishtaku ba'aretz, they may marry with an Israeli girl, they'll stay here. So they begin with the Minhag Eretz Israel, which is 1 day. Siman Dalet, that is the Halachot Ktanot of Rabbi Israel Yaakov Chagiz, the father of Rabbi Moshe Chagiz, of whom we have spoken. Beharat Harav HaGaon Hamaniach is Moshe Ibn Chagiz Zal, B'Shemar Zkeino HaGaon Rabbi Moshe Galanti Zal. Just one thing about Moshe Galanti was very well known. He lived in the 17th century, for most of it, and he was the first Rishon LeZion in Jerusalem, in the Yishuv in Eretz Yisrael in the 17th century. The Sfardim didn't want to talk about Rav Rashi, because that implies that you are superior in some way. So they just wanted to say Rishon LeZion, so they invented this title. שקיבל מרבותיו גאוני ירושלים, שכל רווק העולה מחו"ל אינו עושה לה יום טוב אחד בלבד ותו לא. ונתברר לו גם כן שכן המנהג ושמנהג זה היה קדום ומתוקן ומקובל מגאוני עולם. And this is the old minhag, had always been accepted. Now we're going to go to line 20, and we're going to reconnect with the Ginat Varadim. You remember Rabbi Avraham Halevi of Egypt. We read his tshuva. He seemed to be very clear, not only that you have to keep 2 days, no matter whether you're a student or whether you're established balabait, but they put a cherem in 1700 on any young man who did not keep the 2nd day of Yom Tov when he came to Eretz Israel, even though he was coming to study. So Rav Ovadia picks up on this. Va'omnam, b'shut ginat varadim, הובאה תשובת רבני וגאוני ירושלים בדורו, 1700, rabbis of Jerusalem, שפסקו שאין חילוק בזה בין בחור לנשוי. No difference between a single guy and a married man, ומילתא פסיקתא היא לנער וזקן, and anybody, even if they are beginner or an expert in halacha, they all know it is halacha psuka, שכל שדעתו לחזור לחו"ל, עושה 2 ימים טובים. Whoever plans to go back keeps 2 days. V'gazru al zeh b'gzerat nachash. And as John told us last time, it's nachash. There was a cherem and niduin a shamta put on anybody, young or old, who would keep 1 day only. ומהם העידו שכן מן פשוט בין הבחור בין הנשוי לעשות 2 ימים טובים. וחתימי עלה הגאונים מהר"א די ביטבוטון, או מהרי הלוי ברוכים, או מהרי צרפתי, או מהרי מלכי ועוד. וכן הסכים לדבריהם הגאון המחבר מהר"ל הלוי, and Rabbi Avraham Halevi agreed. Ulam. Now there's a chidush. Chazon Ovadia, Rav Ovadia Yosef does something interesting. He says, Bachacham Gaon Uzenu Maran Achida. Now the Chida wrote 80 books, and sometimes he didn't keep track of what he wrote. So there are quite a few contradictions, and this is one, because we read in his commentary on the Torah, he says you keep 2 days, but here he says something different, although granted it's only about those who are coming to learn in Eretz Israel. The Chatav, ולפי מה שקדמה לנו ידיעה מזקני גדולי רבני דורנו בעיר הקודש ירושלים תיבנה ותיכונן במספר הדורות, שכל הרבנים האלה החתומים בתשובת קינת ורדים הנראה לאל הם ילידי חוץ לארץ. Rav Ovadia Yosef says, that's the background that counts. All the rabbis who said that we're going to put into cherem anybody who keeps 1 day, even though they come from Chutz La'aretz, and they may very well go back. They were all chulnikim. They were all rabbis who came to spend their last years in Israel. And that, until fairly recently in the scheme of things, was what many religious Jews did, including many rabbis. They went to pass away in the land of Israel. So they were very much chulnikim. So Rav Ovadia, in his usual style, says, you know what? These rabbis are all influenced by Chutz La'aretz. And therefore, Ule'et ziknatam, line 27, and when they were old, Ba'u lishton ba'aretz hakodesh, v'lo shimshu l'rabanan kadishi, ma'ared arad, and they did not have any tradition from the great rabbis of previous generations in the land of Israel. Ulerov hatzarot bayamim hahem, pleita nishara mirabanei Yerushalayim, nafke lekiryata kiryat chutzot. And most of the old-timers had already left Jerusalem, gone somewhere else because of the troubles. And there were always troubles. There were political troubles. There were troubles that the Pasha was extorting money from the Jews or anyone who could extort money from, etc. So here it's interesting. Rav Ovadia is being sociological. He says the reason that these rabbis wrote so strongly about keeping the second Yom Tov Chutz La'aretz because they were Chutz La'aretz rabbis, and for them it was absolutely shocking to think that you might be able not to keep the second day. Ulam, ilu yadu koshet imrei emet minhag rabbanei v'gaonei admat hakodesh dor v'chachamav mishanim kadmoniot. Had they known the long-standing tradition of the rabbis of the land of Israel, kasher ha'ed hayid banu b'shut halachot ktanot, as we mentioned, havanach ritchayu, they would have been much less angry. Kavshi lishtarayu, they would have put away their documents of nidui and cherem and shamta. Umavatle datayu, and they would have changed their opinion completely. The Hagam Shemari Bruchim Halevi Katav Sheshimesh Rabbanim V'chak Minhag Shabachurim. Now then he goes on to cite a number of rabbis. We're going to miss that, and we're going to go to line 40. Line 40. So what Rav Ovadia says is Yesh litfos k'minhag gaonei Eretz Israel. We follow the Gaonim of Eretz Israel, כיוון שכל יסוד יום טוב שאין של גאוליות בזמן הזה, אינו אלא משום מנהג. אבותיכם בידיהם. Now he says something else. It is מנהג אבותיהם בידיהם. אתי מנהג ומבטל מנהג. A minhag comes and another minhag comes and disqualifies that minhag. So minhag Eretz Israel overrides the minhag of keeping 2 days. Plus, of course, the Gaon Rabbi Zalman and the Chacham Shri are Shoel Umeshiv Shesovrim. Bernie, is the noise coming from your place? So who is, I've gone down further, my voice on the left. Voice on the left. The only one who is not muted is Bernie. Or this one here. I don't know it is mute. Okay, I muted it. Wonderful. All right, so thank you. Sorry, שחשדתי בקשרים, Bernie. My apologies. וכן פסק על ירושלים, etc. So you've got the gist. Rav Ovadia's psak is if you are a bachur, you've come from Chutz La'aretz, and even if you plan to go back, you keep one day Yom Tov only. So many years ago, I began coming to yeshiva here, keeping one day. Didn't marry an Israeli, but that's beside the point. And since then, I have followed the Chacham Tzvi, Reb Shneur Zalman of Ladi, the Shoel Umeshiv, Harav Natanzon from Lvov, and it's a geographical thing, and I keep one day here and 2 days there. Now let's have a look at something really interesting. I'm on page 2, line 10. Now we'll get Jean to start us off, if we can, but I want to tell you a few words about Rabbi Nosson Friedman. Rabbi Nosson Friedman was a Hungarian rabbi, and he learned in Haredi Yeshivot in Budapest. He received smicha, and he belonged to the Badats in Budapest, and he was a Moreh Hora'ah. He was born in 1914, and he survived the Holocaust. And he ended up, after the war, in Föhrenwald. Anybody heard of Föhrenwald? Unmute if you have. It's the largest DP camp, displaced person camp in Europe, and it was south of Munich in Bavaria, and he became the rabbi of the DP camp. Amazing things happened there, reconstructing Jewish life. But in 1951, he went on Aliyah, and he became rabbi of Shikun Daled in Bnei Brak for 40 years. So he was Aguda, he was also Pai, Poale Agudat Israel, but he supported the state and some other things. He also explained that it is permissible for Jews to take up arms to regain Eretz Israel. Remember the famous Braita of the Shloshet HaShavuot, the 3 oaths? He was the one who paskened that the 3 oaths no longer apply, that we should not be ole bachoma, go up in an armed force against the non-Jewish authorities in Eretz Israel, because the oaths are reciprocal. The non-Jews have to keep their part, which is not to persecute the Jews too much. They broke their oath, so we are no longer bound, and we can go up and we can take the land by force. So he was quite unusual. He also supported saying Hallel with the bracha on Yom HaAtzmaut. Rabbi Friedman was subject to a lot of criticism by the Haredi world, because he was also fairly mekel in the laws of kashrut and Shabbat. But everything had a halachic basis, and he wrote Shut Neitzer Mata'ai. So this is interesting. Let's read what he has to say. Jean, would you like to begin, please? Line 10 on page 2. And if you lift your head, we can see your face. Jean, you have to unmute. Unmute.
וואלה.
Okay.
לכן בארץ ישראל,
Aval, no. We are with the Neitzer Matai. Page 2,
yeah,
line 10.
yes, but
Section
I began the 2 last words of 9 because the sentence
the last
begins.
2 words are mi hirsha.
donc לכן
אבל.
בארץ, מי הרשה זה הרשליש? אני רואה לכן בארץ ישראל אסור לעשות 2 ימים, אף אם דעתו לחזור למקומו, אחרי החג.
I think we need a little higher. אבל מי שנמצא בארץ ישראל. Do you have anything above that?
Yes, but
Okay.
I say, עלו יש כאן בל תוסיף.
אבל, אבל מי שנמצא בארץ ישראל, אפילו אם הוא קבוע בחו"ל.
נו, זה, כן, אבל מי שנמצא בארץ ישראל, אפילו אם הוא קבוע בחוץ לארץ, ודעתו לחזור, כיוון שכרגע הוא נמצא בארץ ישראל, מי הרשה לו לעשות 2 ימים טובים? הלא יש כאן בל תוסיף.
Exactly the Chacham Tzvi. If you keep 2 days in Eretz Israel, you are committing a biblical sin. Bal tosif. You're adding, it's a sin, mustn't do it. Ve'en lomar.
שכיוון שתקנו חכמים כך אין בל תוסיף, הרי לגבי ארץ ישראל לא הייתה תקנת חכמים לעשות 2 ימים, אז ממילא יש בל תוסיף.
There was never an issue of keeping 2 days in Eretz Israel, so it's always Baal Tosif. Never mind that there is a rabbinical takana. לכן
בארץ ישראל אסור לעשות 2 ימים,
אסור
אף
לעשות
אם
2 ימים.
דעתו לחזור למקומו אחרי החג.
Okay, stop there. Arrete. Okay, so this is clearly very positive, very different to what we've read up until now, which is kind of, well, it might be. Other than the Chacham Tzvi, who had no doubts at all. So Rabbi Friedman follows in the footsteps of Chacham Tzvi and says, definitely, Asur, you may not keep 2 days. Now he has something else to say, which is very interesting. Bernie, would you like to have a crack on reading from line 13? Gam mikevan.
גם מכיוון שיש מצווה לגור בארץ ישראל, ויש איסור גדול לצאת ממנה, איך נתון לאדם מחו"ל ונמצא בחג בארץ ישראל, שהוא דעתו לחזור.
Do you get that? Now, stop. Do you get that? If it's a mitzvah to live in Israel, which it is, and it's forbidden to leave, then how can somebody who is in Eretz Israel say, I'm going to commit a sin and I'm going to leave? Okay? Halo anu ma'amidin.
מעמידים אותו בחזקת כשרות,
שבוודאי.
שוודאי אינו רוצה לעבור עבירה.
Okay, so there we are. You definitely don't want to commit a sin, Bernie, right? So if you're in the land of Israel, how can you think about going back? That's a sinful thought. And everybody is considered to be bechezkat kashrut, good Jews. Nobody wants to commit a sin. So therefore we consider everybody as if they were intent on staying in the land of Israel. Okay, Adarabba. Ranon, would you please take the theme up on line 15? Adarabba. Unmute.
Yes.
Great.
אדרבה, נעמיד אותו בחזקת כשרות שרוצה לקיים את המצווה לגור בארץ ישראל.
If we assume that everybody is a kosher Jew, you clearly never wish to leave.
ואפילו הוא בעצמו יבוא לפנינו ויגיד שדעתו לחזור לחוץ לארץ, לא נאמין לו, כי קיימלן אין אדם משים עצמו רשע.
Now we have an interesting principle of Jewish law here. We consider that people are not going to make themselves into evildoers. So many variations of this in Shas, okay? En Adam, okay.
משמחת
אין אדם משים עצמו רשע, אבל אין אדם עושה בילתו בילת זנות. I mean, it occurs all over. We assume that you're a perfectly kosher Jew. You don't want to commit a sin. And therefore, you've come here to stay. And remember, they say about Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, he never came to Israel. Why not?
Because he would be unable to leave.
You are unable to leave. The same they said, by the way, about the Lubavitcher Rebbe. When you come, you can't leave. So every Jew who has a chezkat kashrut, who seems to be a kosher Jew, clearly will not leave. And therefore, you immediately keep 1 day only. Okay, va'afilu hu ba'atzmo. Right. So, ממילא.
מילא אין עליו לשמור מנהגי חו"ל. ושמעתי מפני זקני חכמי ירושלים, שגם הגאון הנודע רבי שמואל סלנט זצ"ל, שהיה כ-70 שנה רבה של ירושלים.
Imagine that, being a well-liked and respected rabbi of Jerusalem for nearly 70 years, that in itself is a miracle. הייתה דעתו
נוטה כחכם צבי, כי בני חוץ לארץ שבאים לארץ ישראל, אפילו אם דעתם לחזור, עליהם לקיים יום אחד כבני ארץ ישראל, וכן הביא בשם
נכדו,
נכדו,
yeah,
הגאון רבי
Michael
קוצ'ינסקי.
Kuczynski of the Loach Hilchati and of many important works on astronomy and calculating times, etc. The famous.
I can also testify that my grandfather, who would constantly quote Reb Shmuel Salant, said that with the same reasoning.
Well, there we are. So here you are. I hope I've not only have we learned to tshuva the Chacham Tzvi and filled down some of the characteristics of this very important Meshiv, but you've also perhaps opened up a new perspective on the issue of second day Yom Tov in Eretz Israel for Chulnikim. Most times when you come from your community in Chutz La'aretz, the rabbi will say, got to keep 2 days unless. Well, here we've opened up a window on the fact that you're going to keep 1 day and 1 day only. And when you go to Chutz La'aretz, keep 2, no matter where your domicile is. So there we are, a revolution in thinking. And now let's move on to the heartless chicken. Are we ready, or do you want to say something about the second day of Yom Tov? Enough said? Okay. So, Hamburg, Tassat Lepak. We're now going to Hamburg in 1709. Now, remember, there were 3 communities. Do you remember the names? Ahu, Corona, Hamburg, and Wandsbek. And we remember that Chacham Tzvi, when he eventually arrived in Berlin and married the daughter of the chief rabbi of Altona, he got a position as head of the Altona Klois, remember? And then when Rabbi Miralus passed away, there were 2 factors about the chief rabbinate of the entire Ahu community. There was Rabbi Moshe Rottenberg, and there was the Chacham Tzvi. So the Hamburg Klois was in favor of Rottenberg, and the Altona Klois was in favor of Chacham Tzvi. Do you remember what happened? Compromise. Let's share. Now, when 2 strong-minded rabbis need to share, what's the result?
Ein shnei dabarim ledor.
Exactly. The tension, fights, arguments all the time. 2 big fish in a small bowl. So that is that's the result. A lot of enmity between the 2 men, and we'll talk about that. But in the meantime, this decision about the chicken became the focus not only of a lot of acrimony amongst the rabbis in Ahu, but it also sets the scene for a discussion we're going to have beginning in the 18th century and ending in the 21st over the relationship between scientific knowledge and halachic psak. What takes precedent? Rational science or what's written in the books? Very fundamental issue. So let's get down to the heartless chicken. All right. Avi, would you like to read?
מעשה בריבה אחת שפתחה בטן תרנגולת להוציא בני מאיה בשפת השולחן, וחתול אחד עומד למטה אצלה, עומד ומצפה לאכול ממה שיפול ארצה.
Okay, so what do we have? We have a young woman, girl, and in those days, you took your chickens to the shochet shechted, you brought as Yonat, as Yonat told us last time, correct? Yonat, when you were growing up in
Israel.
Haifa. That's what happened, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So then the girls in the family would be in charge of opening up the chicken, taking out the organs, sorting them out, preparing it for the mother to come and eat. So they're cutting up the...
I ordered an Uber for you.
Who is that?
No, that's my son. Sorry.
I ordered an Uber.
Okay, fine. All right, you have an Uber.
No,
now we have a river. Okay.
I have to soon go into an Uber. Sorry,
Okay, you're muted. So the girl is dealing with the bits and pieces of the chicken, and there's a cat underneath the table. And the cat clearly will be interested in any meat that falls onto the floor. So Vamra Hariva Shalom Matzah Lev B'Tarnagolet. So the young girl says to her mother, look, mummy or mutti, there's no heart. The chicken has no heart. I've been looking for it. Found the liver, found the lungs, I found the gorgle, whatever I'm looking for, but I can't find the heart. The ima balat hatarnagolet amra shema or karov levadai. Either or probably hushlach halev laaretz. By accident, you threw the heart on the floor. The cat got the heart. Now, the girl, of course, possibly rather embarrassed by the fact that she threw away a perfectly good heart, okay, to the cat, she says, no, I didn't throw the heart. Ella hatchol, the spleen. The term treifa herz is a term that's used for any organ that's either treif or difficult to kasha. Spleen is very difficult because it's got so much blood, so you have to go through a lot of processes, so it's called something which we're not interested in. So she could have disposed of the spleen. Aval halev, lo ishlachti lechatul, chas v'shalom. I didn't do it. Now, is she protecting herself? Could be. But Tanagolet, shmeina uvriya v'tova. Now, this chicken, before it was shechted, was fat, healthy, and a good-looking chicken. Now, it didn't lack anything, and now when we examine the entrails, nothing unusual there. And there's no a sign of a heart that was seriously diseased and therefore has almost disappeared or dissolved. And the fact is that her innards are all present and correct. The gambo dena b'chayim chayuta hayta chazaka ubriya. And when this chicken was alive, it was a really feisty chicken, uvachol kocha, and had a gusty appetite, and it would go and fly, and it was perfect in all its senses, and it was a really chief, masterful, super chicken. ככל אחד מהתרנגולת הטובות והבריאות. אלא שהריבה אמרה שלא מצא בלב. The girl said she didn't find the heart. Now, the critical sentence, Avi, would you please read line 30? ובא מעשה.
ובא מעשה לפני התלמידים והטריפוה מטעם ניטל הלב. יורנו המורה מה משפט התרנגולת.
So what happened? The mother and the daughter go to the Klois in Hamburg, and they show it to, and these are advanced students. We learned about Klois, okay? A certain Rabbi Yosfer Cohen was the Rosh HaKlois, and they say it's treif. They open up the Shulchan Aruch, Yored Deyah, and there it says, Nital Halev. If there's a missing heart, then the animal is treif. That's in the Gemara as well. It's in Chulin, of course. But what does it mean when it says Nital Halev? Now, the Chacham Tzvi was not very happy with this psak, and he makes his feelings felt without any problem at all, and in his sharp way, he has the following to say. Okay, so I'll do a little more reading. Oh, Jo, you can start us off. Tshuva. What is the tshuva? To'im.
I should read?
Yeah, why not? Line 32.
Nital halev in Chulin means that the lev had disappeared. And
yeah, okay. The lead disappeared. Do you think that hearts disappear from chickens? Just like that? Let's read. Line 32. What is the Chacham?
To'im kol ha'omrim
Ken.
ken ki davar.
Anybody who says that there's a missing heart and the heart never was and this chicken lived without the heart is an absolute to'eh. That's what we're talking about.
דבר ברור הוא לכל אשר ליבו לב חכם בקרבו ומוח בקודקודו, שאי אפשר לשום נברא בעולם לחיות אפילו שעה אחת בלא לב, ויהיה כאחד הבריאים.
Now, no living creature that we know and we're familiar with can live without a heart, okay? So the chicken definitely had a heart, all right? ואי אפשר לצייר כלל.
ואי אפשר לצייר כלל מציאות ניטל
Ital means missing, like we say, natul,
Ofeen.
lactose, natul gluten. Okay.
אלא שתכף אחר שחתכו עליו מן הבעל חי שחטו.
Now, it could be that somebody cut open the animal before it was shechted, took out the heart. Then you might have a missing heart. But it's not possible that there should be naturally occurring a missing heart. Uva machmat choli, another line or two, please, John.
ובמחמת חולי אי אפשר לומר שימוס הלב
וימס הלב ויתמקמק
ולא יהיה מסוכן במדרגה התחתונה ויותר גרוע שבמסוכנת.
Okay, so musukenet. Musukenet is a term in the laws of Trefot. Animal that is about, an animal is very seriously ill. Can you shecht an animal that's very seriously ill? Well, there's a
yes.
You could, a musukenet, okay, but you have to check it afterwards to see certain limbs, and if they are not in the correct position, it means that it was already, as it were, good as dead before shkita. If it's still alive, only very ill, but not a trefa, then you can use it. But you would notice the whole point about musukenet is that you're looking at your herd. Say you have a herd of cows. You see a cow that's looking very poorly. You say, I have to shecht it straight away, because otherwise I'll lose the whole cow. There's a question, if you're really Bal Midot and a Chassid, then you won't, okay, because you're getting into a safek as to whether it died, say the instant that the shochet cut it, it died from this disease or complaint. Now, it could have a very minimal heart because the heart has been drained off because of a terrible disease. But וזאת התרנגולת שלא הייתה מסוכנת ולא חולנית, אדרבה, שמנה ובריאה וטובה ושלמה בכל חושיה, אין בה שום רושם מסמוס. But that, if it was a musukenet, you'd see it. The chicken would be droopy, would look ill, wouldn't be doing what good healthy chickens do. And this was a super chicken. Okay? So, הדבר ברור שליבה נפל בפתיחת בטנה ואכלו החתול. Clearly says that Chacham Tzvi, anybody with a single brain in their head would realize that the girl took out the organs, including the heart, dropped it by mistake. The cat then ate the heart. Now he says this is a muskal rishon. Now the word muskal is sechel. This is simply something that is rational. Has to be muskal rishon. It's like absolutely irresistible in terms of logic. It must have had a heart. And the cat ate it. Now here, of course, Chacham Tzvi lets a volley go, as he often does. He calls the whole Hamburg Klois a bunch of idiots, tipshim, hakoftzim, who rush to give a halachic ruling, and they really don't know what they're talking about. ראה זה מצאתי בכסף משנה פרק י' בהלכות שחיטה לחטאת, בין נותנותם למה לא מנע הרמב"ם ניטל הלב, או נברא חסר. Why doesn't the Rambam include Nital Halev in his, when he codifies the Talmud that does talk about Nital Halev? Why doesn't he codify it in the Mishneh Torah? Answer, okay. Eivarim she'im yinatlu v'yefshar la'yitayem afilu shah lo mana'um. There's no point in making a list of treifot about things that once they are not there, lungs and heart, the animal's dead. So it's a nevela. There's no question here at all. Then he goes off to show you how he's an expert not only in nigleh, in law, but also in mysticism. Uvazoha Parshat Pinchas, B'toch ha'sheot sheshal Rabbi Eliezer me Eliyahu Zal. So, for the aficionados of the Zohar, who is the Rabbi Eliezer here? Son of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, of course. And the Zohar in Parshat Pinchas, our Parsha actually coming up, asked Eliyahu Navi several questions. The rabbis in the Zohar are always meeting Eliyahu Navi, that's their thing, asking questions and getting answers. Ve'eshiv lo de metivta derekia amru. In the Metivta derekia is the heavenly yeshiva. They said the Zelashono, Kama de shaifin lo yachli lemeka ma'alma. How many organs are not able to survive in excuse me, in the world, afilu rega chada, even for 1 minute, bala liba, without a heart. Now, actually, the Zohar is talking about the fact that the Jewish people are the heart of the world, and the nations are like the organs. The organs cannot survive without the heart, so nations of the world cannot survive without Israel. But the Chacham Tzvi just cites this to support the idea that you cannot survive without a heart, even for rega chada, 1 minute. And it's a nice touch, perhaps. But in case you say, but this is halacha, how can we go from, in a halachic discussion, how can we go to the Zohar, to the Kabbalah? Bernie, would you like to read the next bit? Velosh she'ani posek halachot. Line 41.
V'lo shani posek halachot mitoch hazohar el shahadavar muschal
Rishon.
V'ha'amet ad latzmo. Aid latzmo. Self-evident.
Self-evident, it testifies for itself. I've got the Zohar, I'm not paskening from the Zohar, but it's a nice flourish, an extra addition. But then he goes on to say something else. ועוד כבר כתב הגאון הגדול מרנו הרב דוד בן זמרה ורדב"ז, כל מקום ברני שאין.
כל מקום שאין הזוהר חולק על הגמרא, פסקינם כבתי.
ואפילו, exactly.
ואפילו במקום שהפוסקים
חלוקים,
הזוהר מכריע. He decides between them.
כל שכן,
כאן שאין שום חולק.
There's no machloket. Every posek who's worth his salt understands. David, medical knowledge. Can you survive without a heart? Can a chicken live and flourish with no heart? Answer is
no. We thought the pump.
There we are. So, I've got the Zohar, I've got the Kesef Mishneh. We got this. The guys in the Klois opened up the book, looked at the Shulchan Aruch, Nital Alev Tarif, and that's it. They said the chicken is treif. So Chacham Tzvi is not very happy with them at all. V'chalila lemi sheyesh lo lev sheyichalek bidvarim elu v'acholkim b'lo lev yidaberu. A little bit of poetry here, okay? Because they're all a bunch of idiots. V'od tau hatalmidim. Now the Chacham Tzvi teaches us an important principle in the laws of kashrut. B'hahi denishcheta hutra. Okay, there's a rule in Masechet Chulin for those who have learned and studied Yored Dayah. The rule is that if we can attribute something wrong with the internal organs of a chicken or of an animal to something which keeps the animal kosher, then we do so. In other words, whenever we can, we are toleh. We make the defect or apparent defect dependent upon something which will make the animal kosher, not treif. So let's have a look at an example. Ki hahi the inkuvreya. You have a hole in the lung. Now, holes in the lungs are very commonplace amongst ruminants. Animals out in the field and the pasture, they get a lot of cold and they get a lot of lung disease. Sometimes you get an abrasion on the lung that actually makes a hole right through the lung. Now, if we find a hole, but we know that the butcher has been poking around there to try and butcher the meat, what do we say? The hole is not the result of an ailment or a disease that makes the animal a treifah, but the hole is because the butcher was poking about. The butcher pokes about, that doesn't make the animal a treifah. It's external to the biological functioning of the animal and not internal to it. So this is the principle, says the Chacham Tzvi. Anybody who's learned Chulin and knows Yoreh De'ah would have to interpret the case of the heartless chicken towards making the chicken kosher, not making it treif. And you've got the mother and you've got the cat. So for goodness sake, how much more do you need? Okay? Then he says, V'ahi, another suga in Chulin, Deze'ev shenatal b'nei mayayim. A wolf came and took the entrails out of your favorite goat. Vechziram. But then you put them back. You found the entrails, you picked them up, you put them back. Keshen nekuvim. And there's a hole. There are holes in there, presumably the teeth marks. The kshera. We say that the goat is kasher. Even though the teeth marks are not in the place where you found the holes in the internal organs, but you say that in order to make the animal kosher, we can attribute the defect to the wolf and not to an internal disease. Okay? Kemoshe katvu zal. Shma mina da'afti reuta kaman. Even though we have a defect, kevan ditlan bamen litloot, since we have a reasonable explanation for that defect, talinan, we're going to use that and keep the animal kosher. Kolshken, שיש לנו כאן נתלות שנפל הלד בפתיחת הבטן, ואכלו החתול. How much more when it's so clear that the cat got the heart. אפילו בחיים, דבהמה בחיה, בחזקת איסור, עומדת אמרינן בספק שונרה, ספק כלבה. Another sugya in Masechet Chulin, we don't know what caused the hole in the lung. And we know that there was a dog or a cat around, and they both could have attacked your goat. What do we say? It wasn't a cat, which is a beast of prey. Exactly, could have been a very big cat. It's a dog. The dog does not do damage to the internal organs like a cat does. That's the way the Gemara thinks, anyhow. So what we say, "Besafek shunra, safek kalba, emar kalba." If we don't know if it was the dog or the cat, and the possibility are equal, then we go for the dog. Kalba, so that the animal will be kosher. Safek shunra, safek kanya, saying that this was a goat that came out of a marsh, a reed marsh, where there was a cat. We say the damage was inflicted by a reed, kanya, and not by the cat. Eimar kanya, I'll say the damage was done by the kane. ולכל הפירושים שנאמרו בעניין ההוא, היכד ההתר שכיח תפי תלינן להתרה. And if the heter is more likely, then definitely we use the more lenient approach to explain the defect. והכה line 8, בוודאי ההיתר שהוא לומר שהלב נפל ואכלו החתול, ודאי שכיח תפי. In terms of statistical probability, what is the likely scenario? That the heart fell off a table, the young girl was careless, and the cat ate it. What, you're going to say that the chicken could live without a heart? Totally irrational. Heart was so diseased you couldn't find it. Doesn't add up to how the chicken was before it was shechted. So the only rational explanation and the thing which halakha points to is that it was the cat, and the chicken is perfectly kosher, and the guys in the Hamburg Klois got it wrong. והכה בוודאי היתר שהוא לומר שהלב נפל, ואכלו ודאי שכיח תפי, מלומר שלא היה לב כלל, מבלי היות שום רושם נמס ונימוק, ולא רושם וזיכרון, שום סכנה, ולא שום חולי, ולא שום שינוי בעולם. אם כן, הדבר ברור כשמש, it's as clear as the sun, שהתרנגולת מותרת מבלי שום ספק. Absolutely permitted this chicken. ועוד בר מכל הטעמים האמורים, and irrespective, like brighter, outside of all of these reasons. היה להן לשים לב לדין האומר, נתנסך יינך, דכשהוא מסור בידו, הוא נאמן. There's another sugya, this time it's based on a Gemara in Gittin, that somebody who has yein neseh, part of his wine was used for idolatry, part not. He can say, this is used for idolatry, this is not, and he is to be believed. Okay? Now, why is he to be believed? Because he could have had a better argument. He could have said, the whole thing is kosher, nobody would have asked a question. Perhaps in this case where there's no migo, he wouldn't be believed. Makhishata denies what the girl said. The riva has no ne'emanut at all. That's only when the girl could have said, I definitely found a heartless chicken. But she doesn't say that. Doesn't say barili. Lafuke binona dedan. She'ena omeret barili. The young girl didn't say, I'm absolutely sure. Ella, she ena yodat. I don't know what happened, but I didn't find the chicken, and I didn't throw the heart onto the floor. This should never have been prohibited. But in any case, don't need any of this. הדבר פשוט שהתרנגולת מותרת. והנראה לעניות דעתי כתבתי צבי אשכנזי סמך ט'. It is not Sfaradi Tahor, it's Safna Tava, okay? As we said. So Chacham Tzvi uses rationality. Now here, it gets interesting. I mentioned Rabbi Moshe Rottenberg to you. He was the rival, okay? So, Rabbi Rottenberg was Hamburg, and the Chacham Tzvi comes to Altona. Rottenberg thinks he should be appointed rabbi of all three communities. Personalities always get involved here. He should have been the rabbi of Ahu. He was forced, because of the Altona faction, to share with Chacham Tzvi, but he never, ever adjusted himself to that sharing. He was supported by the founder of the Hamburg Klois, certainly Yisachar Ber Cohen, and he also, Rottenberg's father-in-law, Yisrael First, was a very wealthy member of the Hamburg community. So when you have a combination of wealth and communal leadership, then, you have an issue. Rabbi Yaakov Emden, in his very detailed story of the life of his father and of his own life, says that these families, the Cohen family and the First family, may try to make Chacham Tzvi's life miserable from the day he arrived in Ahu. They were always gunning for him. And the personalities and the halacha, and this became a flashpoint. Hamburg Klois said the chicken is treif. Altona Klois and Chacham Tzvi said the chicken is kosher. Now we have the wars of the Jews. Kosher, treif, kosher. But in the tshuvot of the father and the son, Shut Rabbi Mordechai Rottenberg and his son Rabbi Moshe Rottenberg, we find something, again, quite extreme. And let's read this extract. Avi, would you please read line 18? This is from the Tshuvah of Rabbi Mordechai Rottenberg about the heartless chicken. Rottenberg said it's treif, okay? Just like the Hamburg Klois. But then, what does he say about the Chacham Tzvi? He says, She'ein b'libenu.
שאין בליבנו לבדות סברות בדויות, ודברי הבל לדון בזה על פי דרך הטבע, מה שלא נמצא בשום פוסק.
What is the problem with Chacham Tzvi? Teva. Biology. Since when does science have a role in deciding halacha? He's inventing things, and this is hevel. A Talmid Chacham is unexpected to know science and to talk about the fact that you need a heart in order to live biologically. Talmid Chacham is expected to know his books. He's expected to be a scholastic. You know what's in the books? Give us what's in the psak. Natul halev treif. There's no heart. Why? What? Wherefore? That's not for you. Okay? So the issue is starting to crystallize into an issue as to the role of science in halachic psak in the early modern period, in the 17th century. Okay? Chacham Tzvi is a rationalist. And by the way, we will read the tshuva of his about Rabbi David Nieto. I mentioned this to you, that Rabbi David Nieto was a very well-educated Italian rabbi who was a rabbi of the Portuguese-Spanish synagogue in London. He gave a sermon on Shabbat HaGadol, and he said that nature is very close to God, and God and nature reflects God. The Sabbateans in the audience said, he's a Spinozist. He says God and nature are the same. So he's an Apikoros. And Chacham Tzvi wrote a tshuva, and he explained exactly what Nieto meant, and Nieto's position was saved. Okay? So Rottenberg attacks Chacham Tzvi for Teva. Teva has nothing to do with it. And then Avi, what does he say? Halo.
ולא יניק לא חכם ולא טיפש יודע דבר זה.
What does that mean?
I mean, anyone born who is not necessarily wise or stupid, everybody knows this.
That you do not paskin halachot from nature or Scientific American or anything else. V'chol zeh,
וכל זה היא שיחה בתהילה ודרך נשים.
of course, he was a misogynist too. Women would say that, okay? It's vain talk. Idle chat.
והמתיר בזה הרי כאילו אמר תורתכם אמת חוץ מדבר זה.
Now, do you know where that phrase comes from? Where does that phrase come from? Hare ki'ilu amar toratchem emet chutz midavar zeh. The opening Mishnah in the last parak of Sanhedrin. Well, or the penultimate parak, depending upon which order you follow. Parak HaChelek. Kol Yisrael yesh lהם chelek la'olam haba, except for those who don't. And who does not have a chelek in olam haba? Somebody who says, en Torah min Hashamayim. And when the Gemara in Sanhedrin Saditet talks about what does it mean when you say en Torah min Hashamayim, somebody says that Kol HaTorah kula min Hashamayim chutz mipasuk ze shelo amar HaKaba ela Moshe mipi atzmo zeu ki devar Hashem baza. So what is Rottenberg accusing Chacham Tzvi of? Nothing less than kfira. Kfira, okay? He would have no share in the world to come because he's denying the divine origin of all of the Torah. What do you mean, Teva? Science. What we want is only Torah Moshe, was written in the approved books. So this is a heavy, heavy criticism. But of course, who cares about Rabbi Moshe Rottenberg? A, he's biased. B, he's absolutely jealous. And C, it's all about turf wars. But there is a more serious rabbi around who's going to weigh in on the principled issue. We have 5 minutes. So, David Parks, we can get you to read in Mamaloshen, line 21.
I can't read because I'm on an iPhone.
Okay, you're excused. Let's go. Now, I should see somewhere. I thought I saw Jack somewhere or the other. Do I see Jack?
Yes.
So, Jack, can you please read Rabbi David Oppenheim?
Rabbi David Oppenheim was born in 1664 in Worms, where his father, Rabbi Abraham Oppenheim, was a community rabbi. His uncle was the famous court Jew, Samuel Oppenheim.
Anybody heard about Samuel Oppenheim? His story is amazing. Just amazing. He lent money to the governments at the time and the dukes and the kings of Europe. He was an amazing man, a fortune, a millionaire, and he was interested in Jewish things. His brother was the rabbi, but he became the macha and court Jew. So fascinating story. Read up on him on Chat GPT, okay? I won't, because I could spend an hour or two just on Samuel Oppenheim. Okay, Jack, please. His teachers. This is Rabbi David Oppenheim. His teachers included
Rabbi Gershon Ashkenazi,
Shelo Tutshuvot Avodat HaGershuni, Rabbi
Yaakov Zak.
Who was Rabbi Yaakov Zak? We talked about him last week and the week before. Father of the Chacham Tzvi, remember? Father of the Chacham Tzvi was Yaakov Zak. And what does Zak stand for? Zera Kodesh. Zak, Zera Kodesh. Okay. And Rabbi
Yisrael ben Yomin,
who is the author of the Nachalat Binyamin, or Mitzvot Haseh, Mitzvot Lo Taseh, all very important, prominent Talmidei Chachamim. In his youth, Rabbi David Oppenheim studied.
He studied with Rabbi Yair Chaim Bachrach, with whom he kept up an active correspondence.
Now, Rabbi Yair Chaim Bachrach, known as the Chavas Yoir, and I'm saying it in Ashkenaz, because why did he call his book Chavas Yoir? It's actually Chava. His granddaughter of the Maharal was called Chava. And often when there was a female relative was important for a young man, he actually, even though he was a famous commentator and posek, would put the name in. Give me an example of one of the most important commentaries that we all learn on the daf, at the end of the daf, of a rabbi who incorporated his mother's name into his official name. I'll give you a clue. He has two sections. One is Chidushei Halachot, the other is Chidushei Agadot.
Marsha.
Marsha. And what was the Marsha's name? Areinu Harav?
Shmuel Edels.
Edeles. Edela was his mother. He thought very highly of her, incorporated his name. Got the Chaves Yoir. It's not Chavat Yair, like a Chava being a suburb. It is Chaves Yoir, the Yoir of Chava, and Shmuel Edeles, and there are a few more. In his youth, okay, and Bachrach, very erudite rabbi indeed, whose Chavat Yair important Shuvot, he wrote an encyclopedia of halacha and Jewish beliefs, which is credible, but it hasn't been printed. Okay, now how about David Oppenheim? Another line, please, Jack. He was
appointed rabbi of Nikolsburg, Moravia, at the age of 25, and married Gerendel, the daughter of Lefman Behrens, Lefman Cohen, the court Jew of Hanover.
Now, court Jews are a part and parcel of the history of Jews in Germany, okay? We heard about the Jew Sus, remember the novel? So these are these famous Jews who rose very high, okay? So this is a very well-connected rabbi indeed, Rabbi David Oppenheim. And thank you, Jack. Who would like to read? Let's go back up here and see who is in the... Is Michael still around? Michael Rosenfeld, how about giving us in 1702? Unmute. Great.
Yeah. In 1702,
926.
he became rabbi of Prague, and a few years later, Landesrabbiner of all of Bohemia.
So we're talking about a very important rabbi indeed. These positions, Nikolsburg was all of Moravia, very important, Rabbonis, and so Prague, the whole of Bohemia, all right? So we're talking about a heavy gun. Rabbi Oppenheim continued.
Rabbi Oppenheim was a prolific author, but only a few of his works have been published, one of which is Responsa, Nishal David.
Which of course means Nishal David.
The Responsa of David.
Yeah, it was asked, Chuvot, so he gave Shelot, Nishal David. Rabbi Oppenheim
was especially renowned for his famous library, the foundation of which was a collection left to him by his uncle Samuel Oppenheim, and which contained many rare manuscripts. It is estimated that at the time of his death, the library consisted of 7,000 works, including 1,000 manuscripts.
So he was definitely an authority on halachic and Judaic literature because he had the resources. After Rabbi
Oppenheim's death, the library came into the possession of his son, Rabbi Yosef Oppenheim, who eventually used it to secure a loan.
We all need money, so we sell the family silver. That's the expression in English. Sell the family silver, need some money. So he sold the books and was stored in chests.
And it was stored in chests in Hamburg until 1829, when it was bought by the Bodleian Library, Oxford, for $9,000. About $6,500. Oppenheim died in 1736, and his grave is in the Old Jewish Cemetery in Prague.
Okay, I'm stopping the share, and next week we'll find out how Rabbi Oppenheim reacted to the question that was put to him about the kashrut of the heartless chicken. And we're opening the debate as to what role science has in halachic decision-making. Okay, so what I need to do now is to find the recording and close it. record. I see record. I'll press on record and see if that actually closes anything. Stop recording. That sounds good. Yes.